How's that? Now you can hear me, right? Very good. Okay, sorry everyone. You know, anytime if anybody who's ever worked with OBS or has worked with Zoom or whatever, um, it's ridiculous. The amount of fussing that you have to do to get things to all work correctly is sort of ridiculous. But anyway, so we are very excited today because we have Wes Talbott in the house. And you guys, like, he's worked on so many of our favorite sets. And when I say our, I mean our collective Elves lovers. We're so excited to have him and talk about some of the stuff that he's worked on. But real quick, let's say hi to everybody who's in the chat, and then we will bring our guest host, Holly and Wes, on. So let's say hi to everybody who's here. Albert Lee is here. Aman Jindal, hi, welcome. I don't think we've seen you here before. Ben Dury is here. Brickanista. Chris 1066 arrival of Chalice family to the UK. Oh wow, that's some history. Cornado is here. David Robinson, hey Dave. Donnie Hebert. Gwyneth is here. Hey Gwyneth. Holly, what's she doing here? Hooded one is here. Christopher Coster. Lily Talbot. Oh, I see. We have a little extra special guest in the house. Matthew Builds Bricks. Monica Berry. Moto is here. Mr. Ellie Daniel 1. Peter Hornberger and the Hornbergers. Ahoy, hoy, Hornbergers. Rob Zaccardi and the Zaccardis. Hi, Lana and Vanessa. How's it going? Sarah Silverman is here. Shane Levan. Smoke Up Johnny. And oh wow, and the Hornbergers are here separately from Peter. Oh my goodness, Andrew and Julia are on a separate channel. What is happening here? Zach Martinez is here, and of course Kim Zarachino, because we could not finish the list without her. It happened the other day and it gave me anxiety. I'm just saying, we're so used to her being here. But so in order to, so let's move on, shall we? Let's invite our guests on. We're moving swiftly through things today here. I'm going to make sure that I have my, I have their volume up here, and here we go. Welcome, Holly and Wes. How's it going today? How you doing?
Doing well.
Awesome, awesome. And how are you doing, Holly?
All good, all good.
Very
Hi,
good.
ahoy, hoy, everybody.
Ahoy, hoy. That Wes is our greeting here in Tricky Lug, or the TrickyBricks build and chat. And if you didn't know, ahoy hoy was the way that Alexander Graham Bell wanted everybody to actually answer the phone when he invented it, was to answer it by saying ahoy hoy. So I mentioned it one day on the show, and then it stuck, and everybody just started using it. So it's
Classy, man. It's classy.
It is. It's really. I also like how they answer the phone in Japan. Moshi moshi. I think that's a great greeting too. I can switch back and forth between those two. So gosh. Here we are. So shall we kick off with a couple of our little features? And now, Wes, I don't know if you don't have a pin. That's totally okay. We're going to do our pins here. Originally, we were going to do pins before you arrived, but we have you here now. But I'm going to show my Disney pin for the day is Figment, who's looking pretty awesome in his little black and a little pink silhouette there. Very excited about that. And I know Holly has one, right?
I do. Yep. I have a Night on Bald Mountain pen.
Very
It's
nice.
really hard to see because it's very dark.
What's the black thing on the front of him? Like a big black rectangle.
It's just one of the scenes from the movie. It's just
okay. Very good. I love Chernabog.
There we go.
He's one of my favorite characters, Disney characters. It's so cool. Golly. Okay, so before we really dive into talking about stuff, we are going to do our regular features because Wes actually has sticker set that is his favorite, and he didn't have have it live, but he had it. He sent me a digital copy, which we can look at in a second. But let's go ahead and do our little. All right, it's sticker set show and tell. So you want to tell us a little bit about this?
I designed, and the reason it's special to me is I didn't do the stickers myself. One of our graphic designers, Lorraine, did it. And I really love the big door element. It's a transparent sticker sheet. So if you put on a big transparent window panel, you have this kind of cool stained glass effect. But the thing that is really special to me about it is that the symbol in the middle of the door is something that I've been doodling around since I was about 12. And I always put it on all of my whole thing is about like capturing dragons and wanting to be the dragon queen. So it's like, oh, I have a dragon symbol that I've been drawing like most of my life. Can you try this?
Hang on 1 second, Wes, because everybody's complaining about buffering gremlins again.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
well, it
Make
happens.
sure-
It happens.
Yeah, I see it happening too. Like it's still buffering. So hopefully it's not.
Yeah, I don't
Tracking.
necessarily have anything here on my end, so it must be a I think it's a
Probably
YouTube
on
thing.
my end.
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with us. It's literally YouTube. Like they just
Yeah.
can't handle sometimes,
Okay.
and especially if it's
Okay.
if
So
there's a lot of
Hamburger says
people.
it's working on their end. So if I had to assume, it's probably anybody that's streaming on their phone, because sometimes the mobile apps are the problem.
Oh, now people are saying they lost the stream entirely. Well, that's
Because
not good.
Yeah, it's still got the little buffering circle on the mobile app. So
Brickanista said she refreshed, and it's fine for her now. So
yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna give them just a minute
Okay.
to. Sorry to cut you off, Wes. I wanted to make sure that they could hear you because I could see the little circle.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's a long story, so I wouldn't have to say it.
But it's okay now. All right, everybody's saying it's fine. All right, for refresh. See, that's what sometimes you just have to do. You have to refresh.
Yeah. So.
Okay,
I
so
don't know
we
if everyone.
we were
any-
talking about the stickers, and we were talking about a symbol. In case anybody missed it, we were talking about a symbol that appears in this sticker set. And is it the one that's the red and with the white? The little round circle with the red.
Yeah, so
sort of slashes?
There's two of the. It's used twice. It's one in the middle of the big door in the kind of magenta color.
Okay.
And then there's another one that's a 2x2 round that just has it in silver.
Oh,
so it's
right.
kind
So
of that
it's
little
this
diamond-
little wing shape sort of thing. That's
yeah,
so cool.
exactly. So,
Is it?
and I still use that on
with this
all
one?
of my. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I actually just showed this. This is what's left of it anyway. But I just used this as a sticker like a couple of weeks ago.
It's a good
Yep.
one.
You saved the best for last.
I did. I know. It was a set that I gave my daughter, and for whatever reason, she never applied that sticker, and she said I could have the sticker sheet. So I'm
It's
holding
too
on
big.
to it for a special occasion.
Well, I love I love any stickers that come on that come on a clear back because you can put them on anything and they look amazing, as long as the
Yeah.
colors aren't too close.
So now I can see it. You're showing it on the. You're sharing it on the.
Yeah, it's on the
Okay.
stream. So Holly, what tell us about your sticker?
I don't remember if I showed this one because this is kind of a new set that we picked up. It was the hidden side, the shrimp shack.
Oh yeah, that's very funny. We've showed it before. You haven't showed it
Okay.
before, but that is a very popular sticker set. People send us sticker sets or send us photos of sticker sets to use, and that one, the Shrimp Shack, is the one that has been sent to us the most by
It's
people.
really versatile because it's got all the
It's
little
great.
wooden details and the cracked windows, and that just seems like that would be a good one to have a few of actually.
Now, is that the boat or the shack? The shrimp boat? Because it
It's
looks
the
like
boat.
there's some boats. Yeah, all right.
the boat.
The shrimp
Yeah,
shack.
sorry.
Sorry, shrimp shack is the one that we get sent a lot, which is really great.
Yeah, you're right. This is from the boat.
And Jake Sadovich is here. Hey, Jake, how's
Hi,
it going?
Jake.
Welcome.
How's it going?
So, all right.
You
so,
know Jake, don't you, Wes?
you may know of him. So, and that's actually something that we didn't talk about. Oh, I have my stickers too, but they are not as exciting, and I don't actually have. I don't know what they're from because Richard's not here, and he always does this. So I have this from a friend's set. I don't know if it'll focus. There we go. It's got the
Down,
gold
down.
record. It's got the plant. Right, and
Ooh.
it's got little awards there behind glass. I'm gonna assume this is one of the ones that came with who's the friend that's really into music? She's always doing music. I think it's got her name on here. Let's see.
Yeah, don't you know Wes?
Yeah, Andrea.
Andre, yeah.
Oh no, this is Livy. This is Livy.
Oh, the
Okay.
pop star. Yeah.
Yes, this is the maybe the pop star tour bus or one of those, but yeah. There you go. All right.
It's Livy. I didn't even know there was a Livy.
I think she was short-lived.
She's a bonus friend.
She's a bonus
Bonus friend.
All right, so gosh, let's get down to it here. So, Wes, I did, you sent me that great list and we shared it with everybody about all of the various different sets that you've worked on. And of course, of particular interest to us and a lot of people here in the chat is that you worked on Elves for the entire time that of its existence. Is that correct?
Yep.
So, how many sets total for Elves did you end up working on, if you can
Oof.
do some quick head math?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. It's an average of 3 per year.
Okay, so I guess a better question is, did you? So a wave is usually like what, 7 to 10 sets or something like that.
Yeah.
Depending.
Yeah.
So you didn't work on every Elf set, but you worked on some of the larger ones, especially the castles, if I remember correctly.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way a lot of the teams work, there's a lot of collaboration. So everyone works on everyone's set in some capacity at some time. But yeah, I think the first year I worked on at least the Nida's boat and the Lava Bakery. Those were my first 2 sets ever. And then later on in the second half, I did Castle, and I also worked quite a bit on the sleigh alongside one of our other designers.
Yeah, had you just started? Like, was that your? Did you jump right into Elves when you started at Lego? Is it
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So
that's lucky.
Yeah, and I actually started before that as a freelancer doing concept art for the theme before I even got the job as a model designer. So
that makes sense then. Yeah, why you would jump in on that theme.
Yeah.
Well, we were such big fans of Elves, and knowing that you worked on it. So I'm also curious too. Like, you are obviously, judging from your Instagram account, very into fantasy. Into fantasy stuff, and you said you've been drawing, your dragon symbol since you were a kid, which is awesome. So I'm curious, was that kind of like the lead in to how you were doing the just the concept artwork? Was it that someone saw your amazing artwork and was like, this is the guy, or did you apply?
Yeah, so I was studying illustration in school at Columbus College of Art and Design, and I wanted to be a fantasy illustrator. So do things like illustrate magic cards or do illustrations for role-playing manuals or whatever. And then I kind of got back into Lego when Lord of the Rings came on the shelf. So also fantasy. Yeah, and so I kind of realized, like, oh man, I rediscovered my love of Lego, and that's what kind of made me look into getting the job there. So I completely shifted gears from going towards fantasy illustration to, I just want to work at Lego in some capacity. And I managed to get some contacts that led me to this freelance job for doing concept art. And I honestly had no idea what it was. I just knew it was concept art working at Lego. And so I got there, and I was expecting, because the managers were from Friends, I was expecting to be working on some Friends concepts. And they're like, oh no, we're working on a new theme. I'm like, what? Okay. And it's fantasy, and we're looking at elves and stuff. And that's why we picked you, because you have all this fantasy art in your portfolio. So that was a really awesome surprise to get there and think, I'm like, oh, we're working on Friends. That's cool. Yeah. And then what? Elves and castles and everything. This is amazing.
That is so. That's so cool.
Were you completely heartbroken when it was discontinued?
Well,
I mean, I was pretty sad.
I think we all were. I think we all were.
I know we were.
We
I can only imagine, because that sounds like essentially like a dream within a dream kind of gig, and
So, but then
I mean, it lasted 4 years, so that was pretty good.
Well, that was kind of my question. I was like, were you sad that it was done, or were you just kind of like, okay, that was fun, let's do something else now?
Well, I mean, I can only imagine, like, if for somebody who's really into fantasy. No, sorry, go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, exactly. So it had 4 good years. So I was happy to be on that project for that long, actually, because you don't always stick around in the same project for that long.
Well, now so interestingly, you did a lot of work on Elves, and then Elves ended, And what I've noticed, now you did say earlier that a lot of people work on a lot of different projects, like everybody's sort of involved in everybody else's project in some way. But I find it interesting that most of the people I've seen or that we've talked to definitely had like specific areas in which they did most of their work. And what I've noticed about your work is that you, as compared to some of the other people that I know their work, have really spread across many themes. I mean, you've not only done Elves, but you've worked on now Harry Potter. You've worked on ideas, and you worked on creator modulars, doing the doing the bookshop. And I'm just curious: is that usual, or are you in a more unusual position where you're sort of moving around to different themes like that?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple people. You've had Justin on the show. He's another one of those that kind of loaned out. So there are a few like that where we kind of have our home projects, if you will, and then doing one or two models there, but then have the capacity to take on a bit more and go out to other projects. But being on a project for 4 years and then that project ending, then I didn't have a home project. So that's why I immediately, like 100% of my time got shifted between whatever could use my help, basically. And it's kind of stayed that way since. I think, yeah, Harry Potter was the last time I was kind of mostly in one project at one time, but other times it's normally 50% on this project or sometimes even split between 3. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's really exciting and a lot of diverse projects.
Yeah, I imagine that's probably enviable that you get to work on different things. Like that's kind of like my wheelhouse too, that I like to. I can't stand doing any one thing for a really long period of time, so I like being able to dabble in different projects for sure.
So I do have a couple questions before we move on too far from Elves. I do have a couple of questions about that line. First of all, Joseph Zawada in the chat asks, I'm curious, was the name Farron based off of Farron Woods from The Legend of Zelda?
I mean, it's spelled very differently.
It is, yeah.
But I'm actually trying to remember. We did a lot writing lists and lists and lists of fantasy names that we could come up with. And I'm trying to remember. I think Farron just kind of stuck. It was like, I think means water or something in another language, and Azari is similar. Like all of them have some sort of tie into their element. Actually, no, maybe Farron is like that. But no, there's no correlation to Farron from Zelda, which I think is Faron.
Yeah, he has them, but they are definitely spelled differently.
Yeah.
So here's another question from Modo. Holly, are we doing okay on YouTube? Because I haven't seen anybody write anything in the chat in quite some time.
So, yeah, I'm seeing chat questions.
Oh, the last thing I saw is hi Alyssa from Joseph Zawada, and I haven't seen
that's
anything.
what I see too. Okay. Yeah.
Just making sure. Oh, good. People are here. They're just so excited that they're not chatting, which
engaged.
Speaks to your power as an interview person, because usually it's like the chat is just like never ending, so everyone's very interested.
Okay, so right. now we know when they're bored.
Exactly. All right, so okay, so here's a great question from Modo. Not surprising. The Elves sets have an interesting roofline feature where hinge clips used with slopes or feathers to set an angle and bring out a lot of detail with a small number of parts. Who came up with the technique, and is there such a thing as a theme technique that unifies a theme with common construction methods?
Yes, this is a great question, and actually there is a very specific answer. So one of my good friends, Ross Haynes, is he used to work as a consultant, so he would come in and kind of boost with us in the Elves team, and he had been doing this for years with all sorts of different Lego themes, so he had a lot of experience kind of starting off new themes. And he did this huge architecture exploration of different roof styles and all this stuff. And we kind of landed on that offset bow scenario because it kind of reminded us of like this kind of ivy leaf shape, which was a very elvish shape to go. So yeah, and that very quickly became like you have to have that somewhere. And then of course, as the years went on, we tried to switch things up a little bit, but still keep to that shape. And yeah, that's pretty common to try and nail down those shape languages that make a theme feel distinct.
Well, I mean, like one of the things that Richard and I really love about Ninjago is the roof treatments in Ninjago are always amazing. And I'm always blown away by how they can retain the same shape, but use a completely different build method, like almost every time, to create their different roof shapes. And I'm always just so blown away by that. That's so cool. Awesome. So I noticed dragons were a big deal in Elves, which must have been absolutely thrilling for you. And I was super as a super D&D nerd. I was really excited to see you, especially because we just fought one in our current campaign. I was really excited to see you say that, and I apologize that I don't have in my mental Rolodex which set it was, but you said this was the first set where we ever included a wyvern, and I was really excited about that. And you know, many people may not know the difference, but I loved that was a term that you used in there. So for a sort of a more evil dragon, right?
Yeah.
So would you like to?
I'm one of those nerds.
You're one of those nerds. So would you like to explain to everybody the difference between a dragon and a wyvern?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I'm one of those nerds that's always upset whenever a movie shows a wyvern instead of a dragon, like Smog. They don't want to pay for the extra 2 limbs, I guess. But which is basically the difference between a wyvern and a classic dragon, is that a wyvern is more like a chicken, I guess. It's got 2 hind legs, and then its arms are the wings. And then a dragon, oddly enough, has 6 limbs, including its wings on its back, and then its 4 legs.
Right, and then it's like little T-Rex arms.
Yeah. And we decided early on in Elves to go for the 4-legged classic dragon for most of them. So there wasn't as much. I think Ninjago did more of the wyvern style in there. So that was one way that we differentiated the themes. So yeah, it felt about time when the Goblin King came around to try out what an Elves wyvern would look like.
We loved those goblin sets. Oh my gosh, they were so amazing. And I especially delighted in collecting all of the different little goblins, like, because they were all so amazing and colorful. And we actually included them heavily in a mock that we did called Treasure of the Snake Queen. And it was an animated fantasy tale. By the way, I should send you a link to that as a fantasy fan. I think you will enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
But we did. It was all animated, and it had one side of the mountain. There was the main story that went up the center, and then one side of the mountain was the good side, and then the other side of the mountain was the evil side. And I had like a skull spitting out a purple waterfall, and then the all of those goblin characters who populated our, like, you know, the bad side of our mountain, and it was really great. We got so many things out of there, and I have to say, I'm as much as I love the Moby Brick book, I am obsessed with the books from the Elves sets, like all of those little transparent book covers. And that one with the skull on it is the one that I'm displaying in my bookshop window. Because I was like, I'm calling it the Necronomicon but that's my bookstore. And I have to say also too, one of the things I'm having gone to many used bookstores in San Francisco is they always have a cat, like always. So I've included a cat in my version. I don't usually adjust things, but the book and the cat I had to like throw in there. But So let's see, what else? What have we got
Do
here?
you make adjustments to your own sets, Wes? Like after they've gone into production, do you ever like go in and build them and start like changing things around? Or do you even build your own
Sometimes.
set?
Most lately, I guess the longer I've been at Lego, because I've been here for 7 years now. Like at first, I would build like every single set that I had designed and have it on display, and now I have so much of other people's models on display that I don't even really display mine out of the box anymore. But I mean, I changed the leaves on my bookshop to be green in the spring, so that's one thing I did. But I would say more often than not, I'm just picking parts off of my display models to use in mocks. So
Oh,
Negatively
I was gonna say, I'm sure everyone can
Don't
relate
do
to
that.
that. My poor
Yeah.
Palace Theater has been picked clean of so many little parts. It's like it looks like a dilapidated, like it looks like it should be in Apocalypseburg at this point.
I
It's
was actually
pretty-
gonna say my Apocalypse bird got picked picked pretty heavily for our Fab Max collaboration.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just like taking a quick jump off of stuff that you've worked on. There are some. We do have a question from. Oh, actually, this. What am I saying? This is a question about what you worked on. I'm so silly. From WGJL Builds, he says, "What is your favorite set that you've designed?"
Ooh, this is gonna be a bit of a tease because it's the Blacksmith, which
Because it's
isn't
what?
released yet. Knows it's coming.
Oh, it's something that hasn't been released yet, but
Oh,
everybody knows it's coming.
Yeah, so you've seen the review for Lego Ideas.
Yes.
So the Medieval Blacksmith is coming, and I worked on that, and it's by far my favorite set that I've worked on.
Wow,
Well, that's something to look
fantastic.
forward to.
Yeah, I was gonna say there. I'm writing this
Yep.
down right now because that'll be a day one purchase. That's
Wow, that's
awesome.
my
So
favorite.
you have to wait a bit, but
Yeah.
then you'll get to see which one's my favorite.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, okay. How about what set that has not yet been released until you worked on that one? What was your favorite before then?
Okay, probably the Bookshop.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I mean, that one is, yeah, that's one that I never thought I would get the opportunity to work on a modular building at that point. Like, I wasn't sure if it would ever happen at all, and then all of a sudden it just kind of landed in my lap, and I'm like, yes. So yeah, a lot of fun with that one.
Wow, that's well, I gotta say, like we've actually been building the bookshop here on the show for the past couple of weeks, which is why it was kind of perfect that we were able to have you on now in the middle of that. And I have not had so much fun building a modular building in a really long time. And the word that I keep using is delightful, because it really is like it is a delightful build. It is it reminds me so much of San Francisco, even though I think it's more based on European, but then San Francisco is very European in its look and feel. But especially the building that's right next to the bookshop, which is we've just started the build. Like we did the bookshop part, now we're doing the second. Really reminds me of San Francisco with that curved stairway and the little the sort of rounded thing over the top. What were your inspirations for those two buildings?
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely the Painted Ladies were on my mood boards, and then for the bookshop itself, I was more inspired by like Dutch architecture, so like Amsterdam style.
Right.
I didn't want to have any like particular, and that's why it is kind of a mashup between like European, American, Dutch, whatever. Because it is, I kind of imagined it being, this is a fake city, right? This is an imaginary city that it only exists in the Lego world, so it can have whatever architecture you put in it.
Right.
So, yeah, and I'm also not an architecture like expert at all, so.
Oh yeah. So who was helping
kind of
you with
making
all
things
the
up.
who was helping you with all the crazy angles then?
I mean the door on the teal building, was a tricky one because I had come up with the way the windows would attach on the top floor with those 3x3 angle plates, but then, and I wanted the door to be the same, but I couldn't, didn't feel like one stud was going to be enough for that. So of course you can probably guess who helped me with that one. And it was
my guess
Mike.
is gonna be Mike. Am I right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mike Psyche.
oh yes. Oh yes. Yes. Amazingly talented.
Yeah.
Now, did you work? And I have to ask this, having been on Lego Masters, did you work with Jamie at all on this, or did he have anything to do with it? Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He
was the creative lead.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's the head of all that, right? So. Very cool.
Yeah. So we had weekly meetings with both Mike and Jamie and the rest of the team as well.
I can only assume he's slightly less stern when he's actually at work than he was on Lego Masters. He was never really stern. I mean, he could be a little stern, which is funny because I think after the show was over, people really got the impression that like Amy was the stern one and he was like the nice one, which is and I thought they were both wonderful. Like I loved working with them.
Which one's the nice one, Wes?
You don't have to answer that.
Amy was actually my manager for a while and got me a promotion. So
Amy was?
No. Yeah, Amy was. No, they're both great.
Yeah. I love Amy. She's I have to say, like, of the two of them post show, she is the more active on social media. Like, I think Jamie's just kind of like doesn't want to deal with it, which I totally get some days. But Amy is very active on social media and is always posting Instagram. She's like all over Instagram and stuff. And yeah, she was just so much fun. And I told her the sort of God, I'm getting choked up just remembering it. I was like the very last episode, because they kind of flew us all back for the final episode, and I got my one and only chance to talk to her and Jamie as a person to person, rather than just like them coming over and telling us what was good or bad about whatever we were doing. And I just told her how when I first started in the hobby, I was so attached to making everything seem very natural and realistic, and that I was always working in browns and tans and greens and like things that were considered more, like organic colors. And now, and I can tell you this now too, and her, is just that when I discovered Elves is when I discovered that I could make use of color in my pieces, and it opened up a whole new way of building for me, and had a huge. I mean, Elves and probably more than any other theme had the hugest effect on my building and how I build. So thank you for that.
Wow. Yeah.
And of course,
telling me that.
Of course, I said that to her, and I'm like crying. Like it's just like. Because I did, I've worked in the arts since I was in kindergarten, like, mostly on stage, and, it was a defining part of my life. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, that started becoming less and less a part of my life. And, I've been doing, theater stuff for, 40 plus years. And so, being able to sort of now focus all that energy onto Lego, and then discovering Elves and discovering that it could be more fun than just building mountains and landscapes, which is kind of how I started. It's meant so much to me in my growth as a builder and everything. So yeah, thank you for that. And I'm going to try not to make a fool of myself by crying right now. But anyway, all right, so let's see. So I have another question from WGJL Builds, and he says, what is your favorite Lego set that you didn't design?
Okay. This is a tricky one because I typically I like a lot of different things about different models, but I would say the last one that overall I built and just finished it was just like, I really like that. was the latest Hagrid's Hut that I believe Raphael designed.
Who was it that designed
I
it?
just Raphael.
Okay.
He's French, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. If I were to try, it'd be something along the lines of Pretescue. It's completely. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Williford can tell us if that's
Oh, Wilfred. Yeah.
Yeah. That's at all correct.
So, Joel, so while we're talking about Harry Potter, that's a great segue. Let's talk a little bit about Harry Potter. So, Joel Marbella in the chat asks, how long does it take normally for concept to production for a set like Attack on the Burrow? Now, before we get into that, I'll let you think about that for a second. But before we get into that, what is it like to? First of all, it's such an iconic building, right? Like everybody knows the Burrow. Anybody who's seen a Harry Potter movie knows the Burrow, and there was already a set made of it before. So how, like, going into that process, and this is kind of, I guess, included in this question as well, but going into that process is like, how do you did you use the original as a reference, or were you just like, no, I don't want to accidentally copy something, or how did that process go?
Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with the original. I didn't actually have a lot of the Harry Potter stuff because that was kind of during my dark age, unfortunately. So I wasn't actually that familiar with it, and then I kind of looked it up and was like, okay, that's interesting. I think at the time when that wave was out, I think it was a lot more about like the simple building and the play, and less focus on like matching reference. As anyone can notice, is probably like there was a lot more liberties taken with Hogwarts and everything else. So this time around, the tone of voice of Lego overall has progressed to a higher level of detail. And also this is a much more expensive set. So that I think that one was like $80 or something. So $20 more. And so I mostly just work from reference from the books that we have, the Harry Potter books, screenshots from the movie, stuff like that. Anything I could get my hands on. It's also, I think, actually my first time working on an IP, so working from reference. Actually, well, I did one Moana set, but after that was, but it was a lot of fun because it's, of course, an IP that I love. So exploring details that I didn't even notice before and just trying to get everything as correct as possible.
It's beautiful, and it's on my list of things of sets to pick up. I just got my flying Hedwig, which we'll get into in a minute. But I've been building the castle, the Hogwarts castle on a Twitch stream, and first of all, the amazing part of that was that everybody from this show, a bunch of people, thanks to Holly, pitched in and bought that for me for my birthday, and they came and delivered it here live on the show, and it was so touching. And so so I started a Twitch stream just so I could build it for everybody, and the level of detail and attention, Justin is amazing with his attention to detail. It's just incredible. And what you were just saying about the level of at Lego, the level of detail has been getting better. And I actually was just mentioning that the other day on the show, is I really feel like you were saying, it stepped up a little bit more from the simple building and the play, and more towards like how much detail can we include, like how many things that people will recognize can we can we get into. I mean, I was building yesterday, and we were doing Snape's potions class, and then right next door is like a storage room. And I could not for the life of me remember what the storage room was about, and I'm pretty well versed in Harry Potter, and somebody had to remind me like what it was, and I was like, oh right, that was like a 3-second scene that happened in like one movie, and it was amazing to have it included and done so well. And it's just as micro builds goes, it's top notch. So okay, so let's see now. WGJL asks what inspired you to make the Burrow, but I do know now. Were you like assigned that, or were you like you heard they were going to do it and you were like, oh my gosh, I really want to work on Harry Potter. Is there something I can do? Or did they just like, you got an email, oh, P.S., this is what you're going to do?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate to be working on the Harry Potter team in a time where it was mostly me and Marcos Bessa for a while. And the rest of the team hadn't quite been figured out. Justin Ramson ended up coming on a bit later. So I kind of had like the whole assortment that needed to be done at some point. And Marcus is like, okay, maybe start with these and then these. So I was just kind of working my way through. And when I got to the Burrow, I was like, oh man, if I had to pick one that I take all the way through it, it's got to be this one. Just because, yeah, I love the building so much. And it seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to do this version of it.
That's so cool. I'm so glad to hear that you were able to like make that choice and it wasn't just like you got stuck with it. Not that you would be being stuck with that, but you know what I mean? Like just that it wasn't up to you. And that's something I know that we all think about is like, oh, okay, does everybody just get assigned it or do you get some say in what you get to do? So that's great to know that you were able to do that. Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's always a problem for me. Is there's so many that I want to do. So like I'm to work on all the ones that I want to. It's the tricky part of we have what we call concept phase, which you maybe you've heard of, where like everyone is building different sketch models. And you're kind of like, oh, which ones am I going to actually take all the way? So yeah, it's kind of okay, I really want to do this one, which means I guess I'll let that one go.
Oh yeah, hard choices, right? Well, and you got to do the set that has Bellatrix in it, which I know there were a lot of people really happy.
Yeah.
And funny enough, a lot of people who were really bummed out. But only because they're like, now the value of my original figure has gone down.
Well, like, you know what? I have both Burrows and all the Bellatrixes, and I don't plan on parting with any of them. So I'm perfectly happy.
I love my Bellatrix, which I came upon by complete accident. Like there was a guy in my lug, and he came with like a little Tupperware container, and he's like, oh, I got these from a neighbor, like I really don't care about them, I don't really like Harry Potter, so if there's anything in there you want, like go ahead. And I opened it up, and on top, and they weren't all Harry Potter, on top was Bellatrix and 2 goats. And I was like, I'll take these, please. Although funny enough, at the time I didn't realize that they were like, you know, a big deal. I just wanted them because I thought they were awesome, and I love Bellatrix, and I love goats, and you know, so that was a pretty exciting time. All right, so before we move on, it is actually... what time it is. Yeah, so to say, it is that special time of the day, everyone. It is...
And graphic, there it
Logan
is.
Cookie time! Hooray! Oh, he heard me. Come on, buddy. Hi, Logan. It's Logan Cookie time. Here we go. Good boy! I hear Wes has a cat, as we all know, who are very finicky, so maybe Kitty will come, maybe not. Here we go.
Sorry, no.
Oh, good catch, buddy! Good catch! What a good boy. All right, one more. And
all
here we go.
Your treats.
The sound of happiness. All right, hooray, it's Logan and Skittles cookie time.
Gotta get my Skittles wrangler.
Yeah, so Wes, that was something that we fed Logan, much like the Ahoy Hoy, we fed Logan a cookie on one occasion, and then it was a feature. Everyone was freaking out over that, so now it's a thing. And we have had, let's see, we've had puppets, we've had cats, we've had dogs, we've had stuffed animals, and a bearded dragon. There's a bearded dragon. That was Megan Rothrock had the bearded dragon. That was too funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to Harry Potter land. Let's talk a little bit about that. So, now it's that's okay.
Harry,
Yay! Hey.
Cats work on their own
He doesn't
schedule.
want to be here.
Yeah, that's fine. We're glad.
Yeah, they don't really. Yeah.
Glad he made an appearance. Thank you.
Yeah.
So back to Harry Potter. So we were talking about the Burrow and what that was like. So now I know Holly's working on it. Yes, and I just got my
I am working on it.
copy of the Flying Hedwig. Now, this is another example of kind of what I was talking about how you are really spread around, like not only by different themes, but architecture, and now this is very mechanical. I mean, this is a whole that's like a whole different thing, right? Like some people can build with Lego, some people can build mechanically. Not all people can do both. So what was that like? I mean, that must have been, I would think, a little intimidating at first.
Yeah, definitely. I guess there was always a few like functions and things in Elves, like in small amounts. So like I was somewhat familiar, and I've always been
really cool functions in Elves.
Yeah. That was another great thing about that line.
I was always interested in like mechanical functions, and I got like those Klutz books, like the Lego Klutz books as a kid, and just learned how to make gumball machines and all that stuff. But it's definitely from a very, I don't know, experimental, just tactile approach. So I'm not like Mike knows why it works, and he figured everything out in his head first. And I'm the type of person that I just slap bricks together until it moves the way I want it to.
That's my method, yes.
Yeah, so when you're designing an official model that has to be mechanical, it was quite nerve-wracking. But the trick at Lego to that is to find the experts and get their advice. Yeah. So a guy named Harold in our Creative Play Lab area that you might remember, Forma.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The swimming fish. So he's kind of the one guy that really worked on that project. So he's really mechanically minded, and he had sketched up some flapping bird functions before. So, and I had seen them. So I was like, "Oh, Harold, I need to work on this. Can you help me out?" So kind of showed me his giant, perfectly solid Technic frame, and then I had to try and figure out how to get it to fit in a tiny system bird, which was very challenging, but
very JK Brickworks style.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I'll say that's very much how Richard and I work. Like, he's very much more mechanically minded, and when we were on Lego Masters and at home, I always would say, like, yeah, he's like the mechanical mind, and I am like, I just make it look pretty, like that's my job. I definitely get it about that. And also too, I know that so within 3 minutes of it hitting the shelves, Jason Alleman of JK Brickworks already had like made his improvements and mechanized it. Motorized it. And so I know when we were talking about that a little bit the other day, and you had some yay, there you go,
done.
You had some comments about
it's flying
that.
Upside down.
Well, I was trying to not let it. I had some comments about the drop on the wing, so I realized if it goes backwards, it's not as bad.
It's just flying backwards.
It's swimming now.
So as
really slow.
I know that Lego, especially recently, has been very hooked into the fan community and kind of what they were all working on. So obviously, y'all are super aware of Jason and his work, and I can imagine
for sure.
That must be when you're working on something mechanical. Is he somebody sort of like a shadow looming over?
Yes, and I mean, I worked on the pop-up book also, which he and Grant pitched on ideas. So we talked on before and stuff like that. So I kind of figured, I'm like, oh man, this is a kinetic Lego sculpture. Jason is gonna pick this apart if I don't do a good job.
You know what?
I'm relieved.
Even though
found two minor things.
even when you do a good job, he still picks it apart though.
Oh yeah, I knew, and he's one of those people that knows what he's doing, like really knows what he's doing. So I kind of figured, which yeah, it was fun to see what he was gonna do with it though.
So
It was cool to see him.
yeah, so there's a couple of ideas sets that you've worked on now, right? So I know that you worked on
180.
what was that, Holly?
Oh, I was looking at a comment. Zarakino Kim says if you offset the cranks and do it at the same time, that it's a smoother action, and she's absolutely right.
Right.
So instead of having these side by side, you know, like where they're in parallel, like a bicycle. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So, but I will say this too, right? Like Wes, I know we were sort of talking about this a little bit earlier when we were having our test call. Is like there's a reason for everything. I know that people, and especially the fans, and this is true of fandom from of anything. A lot of fans are very quick to try and pick apart something and say like, oh, this didn't work or that didn't work or whatever. But I think a lot of times they don't take into consideration that there are so many other factors involved. And that sometimes when you're working on a product, especially if you're working for a company where and I know there are particular limits that you have as opposed to like how many parts and the way things need to work, and that there's a reason for everything. And sometimes it's a trade-off of like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to trade off that slightly more down motion for something else that's going to make it work smoother. Am I saying that correctly, I think?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because he was telling us before we went live, right, that there was a reason you didn't put the pens where Jason put them, right, because it made it harder to crank, right?
Yeah, and Jason actually mentions that in his video as well, that it's a bit tougher to crank and it will wear the pin over time, and those are the reasons we didn't put it there.
Exactly, trade-offs.
It doesn't stop people from doing that themselves, and I fully encourage. If you want to have that movement and you're okay with the cranking being a little bit more stiff, then by all means, make those modifications.
That's what it's for, right?
Well, I can't wait to put it together. I had there's an amazing guy named Stephen Packbaz, and he's the guy that designed the chassis for the Moon Rover, and actually his Moon Rover Lego Ideas set got made, and he I guess it was like maybe 2 years ago, he did a giant blimp with flapping eagle wings, and it had that same up and down movement like you included here. And this sort of leads into a question Hooded One asks, are you allowed to get info outside the company from somebody like JK Brickworks?
I'm not 100% sure what the answer is.
I guess
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying
if I had to say, I would say no. I've never done it, and I don't know of anyone that's ever done it, because there's legal issues with that. Like,
that's a slippery slope. Then you got to pay consultation fees, and then it gets.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I figured as much.
Anyway, the resources that you guys have there.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly, and that's what I was saying. Like, we have a lot of people similar to Jason's skill set within the company. So,
exactly, right. So it's not like you're gonna call up Jason and be like, I'm having trouble with this thing, right? Like you'll go to somebody.
I wonder if there's ever. I mean, well, that would be tough too, because usually the stuff you're working on is so confidential, you can't even disclose any of those details. So even if you were to ask, like, oh, how do you do this mechanism? That's already too much information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, non-disclosures and such.
So, what are some ideas sets that you've worked on? Can you tell us a couple? I mean, I know them, but I'd like to hear you tell them.
Yeah. So the pop-up book was the first. I did this model for the the Flintstones one.
Okay. Yep.
But that I did a Ricardo, I believe. I can't remember if it was more than one person on that one. But then the blacksmith, and then
Right.
of course the typewriter has been out, so I'm working on that.
Oh,
now.
you really? Wow, that must be intense.
And that's the fun thing about ideas is everyone knows that it's happening, so I can actually talk about. I mean, I can't go into detail of
Obviously, yes.
What- but I can say that I'm working on it.
That's exciting. Yeah. So, so you're heavily involved then in ideas right now. So that's basically your work post Bookshop, right?
What was the time?
Isn't it? Because you've been working on.
Was there overlapping? Well, I mean, because the Bookshop's been
book,
out now
the
for a while.
pop-up book was right before the Bookshop, I think.
Oh, okay, right, of course. I don't know what I was thinking. All right.
And then, it's hard to, like, sometimes it's all a jumble, and also, like, the product, like, when we're working on it doesn't always match up perfectly with when they're released and stuff, so it's hard to say exactly.
Right.
Yeah, do you ever have to like start and stop? Like, do you ever start on something for a few months and then have to like jump onto something else and then come back?
Not really. We do plan out the timeline so that there's like a consistent period. If I'm working on like 2 or 3 models at once, then I might like take a week to work on this one, and then the next week I'll work on the next one if I need to.
But you don't work on like you don't do like sketch models or anything at a like sort of a pre-production process and then have to come back to it?
Yeah. Sketch models, that's kind of like, and also like the way people are assigned, you could be doing sketch models for one project, but then later on, once you get into production phase, then you'll be moved to a totally different project. So sometimes you take someone else's sketch model and finish it up.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so if you had to pick a set that you worked on that you would have to say was the most difficult, like the one that was maybe the toughest, what would you say that one was?
It's kind of the same as my favorite set that I've worked on, in that it's the typewriter. I will say no more, but then I'll pick a second most difficult, which would be
I thought you said the blacksmith was your favorite.
Yeah, you said blacksmith was your favorite.
So the blacksmith is my favorite, but it's not out. And the typewriter is the most difficult one that I worked on, and it's also not out. So it's a reference point for either of those questions.
Sure.
So the second most difficult one I've worked on is probably Hedwig. Yeah, that one is the one that at least has failed the heat test. It failed the heat test 3 times, which has never been that bad with any other model I've worked on, just because of,
The heat test. Tell me, I'm intrigued.
Heat test, yeah.
What's the heat test?
So the heat test, if you haven't heard of it, is essentially simulating when a model sits for a long time, and in worst case scenario has like direct sunlight on it. And the bricks might lose a little bit of their clutch. So we do heat tests basically to make sure that the model doesn't fall apart if you've had it on display for a long time. You should be able to pick it up, do whatever the functions are, and it should still hold together. And that one was really tricky because if you like crank it a bunch of times and then heat test it and then crank it a bunch of times and robot test it, which is another thing where you have a robot just going at it for hours or like thousands and thousands of times. And that's the sort of stuff that things like pin placement and all that sort of stuff is really important. And you don't, all these surprising problems come up that you have to solve. And more often than not, especially in mechanical stuff like this, if you find one problem and you fix it, it just moves somewhere else. So that's kind of why if you as Holly will have noticed, because she just built it, the middle of that thing is like a brick.
Yeah.
It's locked in all sorts of directions. That one as well, but also like just the middle of the owl.
The inside, the interior structure.
Solid.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually had to take
So-
it apart at one point because I missed a piece. It was like there's a little teal piece that went on top that I missed and had to like take it all apart to get it back on there. And it was, to your credit, it was actually somewhat difficult to pull it apart. So
Yeah.
Now, when you say the robot test, does that mean like you motorized it and it just like flapped for 7 hours or whatever?
Yeah, it basically simulates someone that really loves doing the function for like a long time.
Hey, Wes, you want to know one that
To make
has
sure
not,
that-
you want to know a set that has not survived the heat test for me? Is that
Yeah?
Mr. Jamie's tower bridge right there?
Oh, the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, I guess.
Yeah, I bought it used from somebody, and it was like barely holding together. They must have had it in a garage or something because it's quite soft.
So what you're saying is that
Yeah.
London Bridge was falling down.
London Bridge
Is what
fell
you're saying.
down several times.
Okay.
And it took all the king's horses and then put it together again.
Very nice. Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. So now we've I want to go back to Elves because I just have I have so many questions.
Oh, when you mentioned Stephen, I forgot to add that Stephen Peckbaz did mention that his favorite theme was Elves too. So
Yes, he
they're
does.
also kindred spirits.
I have to say one of the things I love about Stephen is that he is like probably the most intelligent person I know. I
think it's safe to say that.
Like literal rocket science. Okay. So, but he has when you hear him talk about Lego, he has this childlike quality that comes over him.
Into a 5-year-old.
Because he's a man of few words. He does not say much. But man,
unless he's drunk.
Yes, unless he's had a couple. But he is and it's funny. I've noticed that in a lot of people that I know that are super dedicated to Lego. Boone is one of them, and Steven is one of them, and some of the other people I know. And I imagine a lot of designers, and I'm sure yourself included, that when you hear them talk about it, it's just you get transported back to being a kid and opening that Lego set and what that means. And I just remember the year it was when Benny's Space Squad had just come out, and Steven was going to have that pink spaceman. If nothing, and I remember we were at the convention. We were at Bricks by the Bay, I think, and then he came back from shopping with that pink spaceman, and he was like a 5-year-old. He was so excited about that pink spaceman, and it was just it was so awesome. It was just so awesome to see that.
Yeah, I know he doesn't say much, but I know I had at least a half-hour to hour conversation just about Elves. And I know that one thing that that he did mention was how inspirational it was as far as the mechanical features of it. That was one of the things he loved so much. He's the same guy that did the not just the Mars River, but Flynn was talking about the blimp that he did. We'll have to
So
find
cool.
some videos or something, because some of the mechanical stuff he comes up with is pretty clever. So if you inspired that, I would feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. I think it's, I don't know, you when you talk to people who were involved in movies that have now become iconic movies, like people who worked on The Princess Bride and stuff like that, and you hear them talking about making those, and how when they were making them, they were just making a movie, and they would have had no idea how beloved and popular that thing that they were working on would have become. I mean, do you feel that way? Now, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know how much interaction you have with the fan community, but Elves, I think, is one of the most beloved and missed themes. When I talk to people, because everybody's always like, Star Wars, Ninjago or whatever, but I don't hear the people who love Star Wars. But when I talk to other people, I never hear people speak about other themes in the same sort of reverence and wonder as they do when talking about Elves.
Yeah, it's true.
It's it really, and I think it really crossed a gap. I'll give you an example. I was doing, cons have the door prizes and stuff, and I won a Star Wars set, and I am not a Star Wars guy. Even though I was there when the movie premiered and was sitting in the movie theater when it happened, and loved it, I'm still as an adult, I'm not a big Star Wars person. And there were door prizes being given out, and I got this giant set, Star Wars set. And as I'm coming down the stage, I look, and there's this big guy, bearded guy sitting on the front row looking dejectedly at his friends, and I think it was the bus. It was the friend's pop star bus, just kind of looking at it. And I was okay, I saw my mark, and I was hey, I'll trade you this Star Wars set for this friend set. And he could not get rid of it fast enough. He was yeah, oh, absolutely, this is awesome, thank you so much. I had the similar thing happen to somebody with an Elves set, and he did not want to give it up. And this was a Star Wars person, and he actually had to think about it for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then he finally came up to me afterwards. He's okay, I want the Star Wars set. I'll trade you. For some reason, I win a lot of Star Wars sets and things. So anyway,
or the probability is high.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, I hope that that it is across the board a theme that people really, really loved and resonated with a lot of people.
I love Joel's comment of Elves is the Firefly of Lego themes.
Wow, yeah.
It lasted a lot longer, admittedly, than Firefly. But yeah, I just want you to know how much people really appreciate it, and that it really does go across the board. It was it was the colors, it was the design sensibility, it was the mechanical play functions, and I think too it helped that there was a refreshing of villains. Every round there was a different villain. With something like Ninjago, you pretty much have your who you're going to be going up against. Even though they do have some different villains, there's always the main one. That must have been really fun from a design standpoint to get to come up with villains all the time.
Oh, yeah, because there was a show that coincided with it too.
Okay, so yeah, there's a good question. So how much now did you work at all with the people who worked on the show? Or was that did they refer to you or ask you questions, or how did that work?
Yeah. So Elves was an interesting one because we did have a decent amount. The design team had a decent amount of input. So we had kind of a front end group that would make 3 different concepts for what's Elves Year 2 or Elves Year 3 going to be about. And we would test, the design team would kind of spar with those people about is it going to be goblins? And I think that was one that in year 3, that was one I was wanting to do. Also in year 1, I really wanted dragons, and it didn't really, I think we had the one little baby dragon. But then it wasn't until year 2 that we got the full-blown dragons and all that. So we had all these ideas in the design team cooking of what should we do next year. Actually I would say the second year of Elves was very close to the design team, so to the point where we were essentially told, most of the time you get a brief we're going to do a dragon and a castle and a this and a that, and then you kind of divvy out between the designer who's going to do what. But in this year,
does that come from internally or from the design team on the show?
That's from internally.
Okay.
So we kind of start because it was a new theme, and it was we haven't been doing that many shows we did Ninjago, and I think we had Friends running at the moment. So this is, I don't know, maybe the 3rd show. Maybe we had some Star Wars and other things as well. But it was very you kind of make the assortment of products and figure out what is the story around those products, and then kind of flesh it out. So it was very collaborative. The second year we were pretty much told, what do you think Elves Year 2 should be? So there was a lot of Regana's Castle was one that I was like, oh, we need to do like an epic, like, or think like Dark Tower that's for the villain. That you have a special egg at the very top that they need to like climb all the way up to retrieve. And then things like, I just wanted to do a kind of medieval market village, and that's kind of where the secret marketplace came out of, but with the elf skin and things like that. And it's like the secret marketplace, I think the main story hook is that they had to find a book there. So it's not like this huge reason for it to exist, other than a nice setting in the universe. And they're like, and I think that was the sort of thing where like, oh, we need a reason for this. Like, how do we fit this like location into the story? Is like, oh, well, that's where they find the book. So yeah, it was really collaborative, and it's kind of a rare thing to be that involved now, like, because the company has gotten a lot bigger since then and been more specialized. So now you have people that are more focused on just working with the show or just working with products. It's similar to how you hear like some really veteran designers back in the day when one person did an entire theme by themselves, like models, elements, graphics.
Yeah.
Wow. That's kind of a middle stage where, yeah, we were still small enough that it was kind of a smaller company mentality. So I look back on those days fondly.
Yeah, it does seem like the little goblins were, to me, felt like they were like TV infused. That those were like designed more for TV than they were Lego sets, but.
Well, but it's interesting. Yeah. I want to go back to something that you said, because I have to say I was shocked. So product first and then story second. That's really I find that fascinating. I would have thought that it would have been the other way around. But what a cool way to work, though, because you get to set the setting, right? Like, you get to say there's going to be a secret marketplace, and somebody can figure out why they need to go there, which is...
I think there's a lot of storytelling that goes into product design too, though. Like, especially when you're designing a Lego set, you are sort of telling a story, so it makes sense to me. Yeah,
well, I mean, and that's one of the things that I liked about one of the many things, because I've done nothing but fanboy about Elves for the past hour and 15 minutes. One of the things that I really loved about Elves is that I didn't need to have an association with the animation to get it, right? Like, I got it by building the set and playing with it. Like, I always to me that's important, right? Especially because I'll say, like, for me, I found like Hidden Side, while I love everything spooky, I am like the spooky guy, and I liked those sets for their elements. I didn't get that same sense of understanding of it without doing some research.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Hidden Side was a little lost on me because I didn't understand like what the play sets were about, what the figure. You could tell that there was obviously something going on with things were just a little too specific, and the same. I don't know. Yeah, I felt exactly the same way about it.
Yeah, I mean, and although I will say they did sort of follow that same Elves path of having a different villain, like having multiple different villains each time, to more or less effect. I will say, although I will say the villain for this last wave, there's it's a fire truck set. And the version of the villain with that, it's like he kind of looked like Slender Man, like all these like super creepy long legs and arms. And I thought of all of the Hidden Side stuff, that design was so simple and yet so incredibly effective and really, really genuinely creepy. Like, it was really kind of like a little upsetting. Actually, I was like, this is so weird. Excuse me.
I still remember when I saw that for the first time in the office, and I was like, "Whoa, that is awesome!"
Yeah,
Neek, did that one. He's great.
Was that Neek?
Yeah, that was it was a pretty cool one. So when you is that something that you went for? That was from the beginning, like with Elves, is that you were going to have a different villain for each one? Like, what? I'm just curious. Like, what drove the decision not to have a sort of singular villain that was like overarched over the whole thing. What sort of drove, or do you even know what drove the decision to have different ones every time?
Yeah, I think it's just the sake of fleshing out the world more. Like it seemed more interesting to introduce a new character.
Right.
And it's funny because we kind of tried to, towards the end, link it back. So we Noctura was the last one that we introduced, and we kind of hinted that, oh, she's actually responsible for like what was going on with Regana and the Goblin King, and like we kind of like that idea of this mastermind villain behind the puppet master the whole time. I don't know if we ever really explored the full extent of that in the content to really explain it. But yeah, I think it was mostly just for the sake of, yeah, like having an exciting new villain that's causing a problem. It's that cycle of like each year there's a problem, this villain's doing something, or actually the first year wasn't. The first year was just Emily needs to get back home.
Right.
And that was kind of an introduction to the world, and we didn't want to make it too intense right off the bat. It's kind of like any TV show has to continuously ramp up the drama. So we actually started with no conflict at all in the first year, which was actually kind of nice to have this just kind of peaceful, explorative adventure. And then
Always
ramping
how
it
it
up
begins.
I know it always
Yeah,
does.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm curious, how much talk went into when you create? So I was super psyched. The Goblin King is one of my favorite mini dolls, like hands down, like really, really awesome. Like the clothes, like the design, like everything. Was there any talk about like? I mean, because when people say Goblin King, most people the first thing they think of is David Bowie and Labyrinth. So was there any discussion about that internally, about like that sort of association that people have with that particular character?
Of course we were aware of that version of the Goblin King, but we were approaching it more from we wanted to explore like these small nuisances that could be little bits of conflict in every box, basically.
Yeah.
Rather than, it's not something too overpowering, and they're humorous but also annoying, and you can either capture them or befriend them or do whatever you want. It's kind of an open way to have a villain in each set. And we felt like, okay, but they need this guy that's kind of controlling them, or I mean, he literally is controlling them.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to call him that. And we were aware, we were like, okay, we got to make sure his hair isn't like super spiky or anything like
right
in that area. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's a great way to go, right? Like if you have a main villain and then you have minions, then you can like put your minions in other sets and save the big guy for the big set. Which, by the way, that Goblin Castle is epic, and I love that set so much. It includes one of my favorite Lego colors, which is that like yellow green that looks like it should glow in the dark, but it doesn't. And then I am like obsessed with that green transparent round with the spiral cloud thing on it. It's like I'm obsessed with that particular piece. It's like one of my favorites.
Got a whole drawer full of them. I know.
For
For whatever reason, just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case.
That was just amazing. And so I'm curious, like, because building just a straight castle, like a straight up, like the old school castles, is very different from designing a fantasy castle. And then on top of that, you're designing a castle to fit a theme that's already been well established, right? So you have, I'm sure, like elements and things that you needed to go. Did you have fun building that one? Was that a fun one, the Goblin King castle?
Oh yeah.
That must have been. Yeah, I was just saying.
That was.
It's such a good model. So before we wrap things up here, I did want to kind of go now. So not only, I mean, we don't see this with tons of the designers, but not only do you, work on your stuff that you design, but you also have worked on your own stuff that you put out there. A lot of it is the illustration stuff, but I gotta talk about that Beholder, because that is like, of all, I mean, like most of us, I see a lot of Lego mocks in a day. And that is, I mean, just because that's my Twitter feed, that's my my Instagram feed is all, people who make mocks and stuff like that. That one is just incredible. And I'm curious to just so what inspired you to that, and how long did it take to make it? Because it's perfect.
I haven't seen it. I'm having to look it up.
You haven't seen it? Oh my goodness, it's on his Instagram. Look it up now, because it's amazing.
Yeah, so that mostly stemmed from, of course, playing D&D. And we had I think a 3-year-long campaign where we were using minifigures as minis.
Mm-hmm.
We've since transitioned into actual minis just because none of us had really done that much, and we were like, okay, enough Lego, let's try something else. So I was building a couple monsters here and there to help flesh out my DM's assortment of monsters. And I had tried a couple Beholders. I actually did another one that was a little bit smaller that I think is also somewhere on my Instagram, maybe. And I just thought, like, it's such a cool, iconic creature.
Iconic, yes. Nice one. That
I just felt like, this would be a great one to do at a larger scale than a minifigure scale. But I was just thinking how to do those organic eye stalks was the trickiest thing of doing it at a larger scale. Because of course there's a lot of different techniques, so you can have segmented things, but I didn't want to do something that felt robotic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course the Mickey and Minnie set came out that had that new element in it. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, there it is. I can make like a Beholder with that as the scale for the eye stalks, and it's going to be great. And then, it was loads of fun. And I think my favorite thing was discovering that printed tile from the, I think one of the Chinese New Year parade sets or something. Mm-hmm. That really, for the detail and the iris.
Yeah.
As far as like,
sorry, the flower that's around
Sorry,
the eyeball, is that a new color?
Yeah, because that flower is from Elves.
That one was from a Lego movie too. Well, the element I think was originally from a Disney princess line.
Oh, was it? Okay.
As like a and then that color change came from us. I think it may have been in a small Lego Movie 2 set. It's like part of the alien planet undergrowth.
Huh. So, is it black? It looks like it's black.
No, it's dark blue.
Dark blue, okay.
Yeah, and there's actually you have a picture of it without the lighting as well, right? Like with the lights turned on.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So
it's really dark. So.
It's like seeing Space Mountain with the lights on. But
it's better than that.
No, it is because believe me, Space Mountain with the lights on is boring.
I can see it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really fantastic model, and I was telling you before, I shared that with our D&D group, who are like, they kind of put up with Richard and I talking about Lego, but more so since we were on the show, but they mostly just put up with us talking about it, and I shared that with them like immediately upon seeing it, not knowing you yet, and they were just completely floored. Of course, they thought I made it. I'm like, no, I'm not that good. It's like, it's really, really cool. But I think it's, I know when you're working for a company like that and you're, and your hobby becomes your job, it's sometimes hard to want to work on it still as a hobby. Like, I know when I went to baking school, I went to pastry school, after it was over and after I had worked a restaurant job for a while, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to bake. Like, baking at home was something I did not want to do, and everybody was always calling me for cakes and stuff, and I was like, no. Oh, hey, look who's here!
Hi.
Richard's here.
Hey, Richard, look, we have our
Nice
Leica
to see
shirts
you.
on.
I know.
And meet you. Hi.
And I've got my Cthulhu shirt on, so we're on. I know, not Leica, but it's Cthulhu. Anyway, sorry about that. I'm so glad he's here. Great, I thought he was going to be gone all day. This is perfect. Anywho, where was I? What were we talking about? I've completely lost. I know. See, the husband walks in, and then my brain explodes. Oh, that's right. We were talking about the Beholder. Anyway, a really great model, and I encourage everybody to go onto Wes's Instagram, and I believe it's Wes_Talbott. Is that right, Wes?
Yep.
With 2 T's, like the Wolfman.
On the end.
Sorry, I've been waiting for an hour and a half to slip that in, by the way, because I'm a big big werewolf fan. But anyway, it was. I wanted to say thank you, Wes, so much for taking the time to come and talk with us today. And I actually have a million more questions that I will shoot you offline, which you can choose to answer or not. But I just
Yeah, sure.
I am just so glad that you came here and you were able to talk to us. And for me, oh yes, thank you, Minifig Chick. Put a link to your Instagram in the chat. Very good. She's great like that. She's like the link queen. She always has like all the links ready to go. But I know that, and I know you and I were kind of discussing this a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to say that for me as an artist, and I think for a lot of us as artists, I think it's so important for people to see the faces behind the products that they love. Especially, and I know obviously, you know, you are not the only person who worked on these sets, but you were very influential, and a lot of your hard work went into them. And I think that it's really important to acknowledge that. And I know that, like, with a big company who puts out a lot of product, like Lego, it's often very opaque about, like, oh, okay, I just have this, you know, I have this awesome flying Hedwig. Oh, what a cool thing. And sometimes you don't think about, like, who did that? Like, who is the one who thought of all that stuff? So I think it's really wonderful for all of us to be able to meet you and see the face behind the work that we all love. And really just shoot you some love and acknowledgement for all of your hard work. So thank you so much for all of that, and for being such a great inspiration.
Thank you for having me.
Now we just
Absolutely.
gotta get Crystal on here.
Yes, we want Crystal. we definitely want Crystal. And I'll tell you who else. You know who I've been dying and I've just been too scared to talk to is Marcos. So can you put in a good word for us?
I'll see what I can do.
Because I mean, he did the Disney Castle and a bunch of other stuff that we're all really big fans of here too. So, but thank you again, Wes, for joining us today, and thank you, Holly, for coming on and being a guest host. I know Richard is very thankful that you were able to come on and host with us, and for making this all happen. Holly is the one that set this up, so. Thank you, Holly.
It's good to see you, Wes. It's really too bad that we couldn't all hang out at Scareback this year. Flynn was going to be there this year too. So.
Yeah. But next year, right? Next year, it's coming. We're going to be there. We're going to be bringing our work to the Lego house. Yes, hopefully. We're really excited for that. And actually, that's right. I just realized I was exchanging messages with Justin about how excited that we are to get to see him when we come out there, and hopefully we'll get to see you too. When we come out, we'll have to have like some kind of massive meetup, and then I can dissolve into a puddle of fanboy ridiculousness. And it will be awesome. So thank you, Wes.
Don't worry.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you everybody, all the viewers who came to check this out today and sent questions in. We really appreciate it. And until next time, we see you, which will be Friday at 10 a.m. And just a reminder to everybody that your 16 by 16 Halloween scenes are due tomorrow by 5 p.m. to get in the slideshow on Friday. And until we see you Friday at 10 a.m. Oh, by the way, I will be on Twitch later today at 2 o'clock working on the castle some more. So if you want to come and check that out. But until then, please be sure to stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, wear your mask, get a flu shot if you haven't gotten one already, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.